Here we are again, and nothing has changed. Alberta has seen a total of 7,704 cases of COVID-19, 534 of which are active. 33 people are in hospital and 7 people are in intensive care. This is after over a month of staged reopening and seeing protests all around the province involving thousands of people who did not mind their social distancing. These numbers have hardly changed in the last month. No cases have been linked to these mass gatherings, only at barbecues, funerals, and restaurants. I find this suspicious. I find the whole thing suspicious. After all, the total death count in Alberta is 152 people, a figure that has remained more or less unchanged for several weeks now. To put it in perspective, out of 4.3 million Albertans, only 0.0035% have succumbed to this deadly disease. So far, 99.9% of Albertans have survived. This virus has been circulating in our province since early March. That is 4 months ago. We were supposed to be locked down for 2 weeks. Here we are, 4 months later, and we are still locked down. Sure, they have eased some restrictions, but the reality is that the people of Alberta are still suffocating under the grip of this government's totalitarian actions. If 10 to 15,000 Marxists, including Mayor Don Iveson and David Shepherd of the provincial NDP, can gather downtown here at the Legislature in complete defiance of the public health order, and nobody gets sick over 2 weeks later, why the hell are we still restricted? Why is this 2-meter social distancing rule still in effect? And why were our politicians not charged for violating the public health order? It is interesting to note that after not getting 100% compliance at basketball courts and skate parks, that Mayor Don Iveson extended the city's state of emergency, only to turn around and cancel that state of emergency the very day of the Black Lives Matter protest and attend it himself. This is tyranny. He should not only be out of a job, but in prison. When End the Lockdown protesters expressed their right to assemble, they were arrested and ticketed. Why are Marxist protests tolerated when good old-fashioned Albertans are silenced? Is this government trying to foment a revolution? It sure seems like it. Jason Kenney sits in his ivory tower and refuses to accept any responsibility for the damage his actions have caused the people of Alberta. He won't release data on the number of suicides that we all know are rising thanks to this lockdown. He has not released the opioid overdose statistics. We haven't even gotten any impression of how many businesses and families have already been bankrupted. Mr. Kenney seems to think that we won't notice. He thinks we aren't paying attention. All the while, he claims that he only ordered 15% of Alberta's businesses closed. What a half-truth that is. How many people were not directly ordered to close, but did so anyways, thanks to the confusing and unclear guidance provided by this government regarding essential versus unessential businesses? We all know of many businesses that are still not open, even though they were never ordered to close. How does Mr. Kenney expect us to believe him? Who does he think he is, deciding what jobs are essential and what jobs aren't? Since when is a liquor store or cannabis shop more important than a church or a fitness facility?
Amen, bro.
Since when does the government get to dictate how and when we are to worship our God? Singing, laughter, and cheering in public are still banned. Yet 10 to 15,000 Marxist protesters were allowed to gather and chant and cheer and roam all over the city streets as if they owned them. Why does this government not stand up for the average Albertan?
Page 2. Page 2. It's coming.
To make matters even worse, while arresting peaceful protesters and threatening businesses, churches, and individuals with huge fines, Mr. Kenney let the convicts out of prison. Mr. Kenney's government is releasing pedophiles and letting them to return to their homes within 200 meters of the residence of their victims. Wow. What the hell is going on here? Wow. Everything this government has done so far is nothing but spitting in the faces of the typical Albertan family. It's not bad enough that Mr. Kenney has destroyed our economy, our livelihoods, our businesses, and our churches. He has to gloat on social media. Just yesterday, he posted on Facebook about his pulled pork that he roasted in the oven for 13 hours. Mr. Kenney, are you taking lessons from Marie Antoinette? Is this your let them eat cake moment? Do you know what happened to Marie Antoinette, Mr. Kenney? How dare you post pictures of gourmet meals while tens of thousands of Albertan families eat craft dinner thanks to you? Do you not realize that 10 to 15,000 Marxists are hitting the streets now pushing for a revolution? It is time you owned this, Mr. Kenney. Take responsibility for the suffering you have caused. I have people phoning me and writing me all the time about how your actions have ruined the lives of their families. These people cannot see a way out. They are desperate, and all you do is swat them aside like bugs. You don't return their emails. You don't return their calls. You won't even acknowledge their existence. These are the people that built this province, and you have turned your back on them. These are the people that voted you into office, but you seem to have no issue with 10 to 15,000 Marxists hitting the streets. Do you understand how much trouble this province and country are in right now, Mr. Kenney? Do you realize that any more mismanagement from you could send this province into a revolution that we may never recover from? I voted for you, Mr. Kenney, and I am ashamed. I am ashamed of this province, and I am ashamed of this country. This country stands for nothing. It is governed by globalist shills that have sold the people out. These governments no longer represent the people. We are being governed by traitors, including you, Mr. Kenney. You are a traitor. Amen. You are a globalist shill. Amen. You do not have the cojones to stand up to Justin Trudeau. You don't even have the cojones to stand up to Dina Henshaw. Amen. Amen. You are a pathetic excuse of a man, Mr. Kenney. Woo. You attend globalist meetings like Bilderberg without even a second thought as to what the people of Alberta or Canada actually want. You are an abusive dictator, a tyrant, and a traitor. If it were up to me, I'd bring you up on charges of treason. Your government's actions during this pandemic have been nothing less than acts of terrorism. Even now, as restrictions are supposedly easing, a huge percentage of the population is afraid to go to a full restaurant. Most churches are still not open. Why would anybody go to a church if singing is still banned? You can't even shake hands without the threat of a $100,000 fine. Get out of our lives now, Mr. Kenney. Rachel Notley is starting to look like a saint after being forced to endure your reign of terror. And it never seems to end. Now we are being pushed to wear masks. Masks that even Jason Kenney never wears. Hell, Jason Kenney doesn't even social distance in his photo ops. This pandemic is 4 months old now in Alberta, and now we need to wear masks? Are you kidding me? We still have no idea what the schools are going to look like in the fall, even though children are at zero risk of death from COVID. Will social distancing be gone by then?
Doubt it.
We want to know, Mr. Kenney, give us a date. When will your reign of terror end, Mr. Kenney? People that work out of the country are even more screwed. If they return from work, their entire family is required to quarantine for 2 weeks. How will households function when they have to be quarantined for 2 weeks out of every month? How will their children go to school? Shandro seemed to imply that they would not have to quarantine as long as nobody showed symptoms. Then mere days later, you put out Bill 24, which states explicitly that all returning travelers from outside of the country will need to be quarantined. More lies on top of more lies. Keep digging, Mr. Kenney. Eventually you will get to hell, where you belong.
Amen, brother.
I want some honesty from you, Mr. Kenney, and I want it now. How are you going to fix this? Or are you just going to let this province and country death spiral into a Marxist revolution from which we will never recover? Cut it with the cutesy social media posting and give Albertans the truth. Tell the people how bad this situation really is. Tell them how big of a hole we have gotten ourselves into. And accept responsibility, Mr. Kenney. Hell, it would be nice just to see you acknowledge the damage you caused. We want numbers. Quit hiding the facts. You can't save yourself from them. We will dig them up for ourselves if we have to. How dare you lie to our faces? How dare you avoid responsibility? How dare you destroy this fine province? How dare you even show your face in public? We are coming for you, Jason Kenney. Either start representing the people of Alberta or step aside and let's find a real leader.
Amen. Amen. That was amazing.